Hi, my name's Stuart Lynch, and in this video I'm going to be covering two distinct but related things. I want to show you how you can present a grouped list view and how to add mock data to your previews. We'll start by creating a simple model and some sample objects to display in a list. Then we'll visit the Mocaroo mock data generator site to generate a lot more data and add that to our project. And once we have a lot of data, we can start to display it differently by grouping and displaying the data in collapsible sections in a list. All the while, we'll make sure that the data within the groups are all sorted as we like within the section group. I love getting your feedback, so tap the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video and leave a comment below. Make sure you subscribe to the video and ring that bell to get notifications of new videos. And if you want to support my work, you can buy me a coffee. I've created a starter project for this video, and you can download it from the link in the description below. The one important file is this bundle extension that I use to decode JSON data that I'll be using for the mock data. This extension was first created by Paul Hudson from Hacking with Swift. I've also added some assets, like this app icon using Jordi Bruin's bakery app. And I've also taken one of the images to create an image that I use to create the launch screen. And you can see the launch screen storyboard here. Also, you see that I've specified that file on the General tab for our app specifications. First off, then, we need to create a model for the list of people that we want to display, as you saw in the introduction. So, create a new Swift file for our model and call it person. Inside there, create a struct with the same name and make sure that it conforms to the identifiable protocol so that we can display our list in a for each loop. Within the struct, we'll create 9 properties. For the ID, we'll use a UUID and convert that to a string. And then we'll create first name and last name properties, both being strings. And then follow that with a role, department, and country, again all being strings. In my list, I want to combine the last name and first name in a computed property, and I'll call that full name. And I can put a comma and a space between each of those properties and return that computed value. For the purpose of this demo app, I'm going to assume that the country for my users is going to be from a fixed number of different countries. And I want to know the flag of that country. So I'll create another computed property that will return the flag as an emoji. So we can switch on the country property and then return an emoji flag representing each one of those countries. Feel free to use your own countries and flags. And I suggest that you create at least 4 of them. I'm going to use the United States, Canada, France, and the United Kingdom. In the case where I have a different country that I failed to enter, I'll just return a white flag. And I guess I should correct the spelling here for United States. Now this won't make much sense now, but when we create our grouped section list, I want the section header for my country section to include both the flag and the country name. So I'll create a static function that I'll call country flag that'll have one parameter, and that's a string representing a country name. Then I can switch on country once more, and then I'll just copy and paste from above and add a space after each flag. And then I can append the country's string or country name to that compounded string. The content view is where we're going to present our list of persons. So let's first rename it as person list view instead of content view. I like to rename the preview provider as well. Now I want to separate the logic from the presentation. And by this, I mean I'm going to use a view model to handle the logic. So create a new file called person list view model. And inside there, create a new class called person list view model and make sure that it conforms to the observable object protocol. And then for now, just create a single published property called people that will be an array of person, and we'll initialize it as an empty array. So back in person list view, we'll create a new state object that's a private property called view model that initializes our person list view model. Next, we'll replace the body content with a navigation view. And inside there, we'll create a list. Inside that list, we'll use a for each loop that will iterate over our view model's people array, providing us with a person iterator. Then we'll create for now a single text view using the person's full name computed property. We'll add a navigation title using the string people. Next, I'll add a toolbar, and then within there, a toolbar item with a placement that's the navigation bar trailing. We'll use a button that has an image, and that image will be a system image using the plus.circle.fill. And I'll set the image scale to large. Now, at some point in the development of this app, I'm going to want to create a new person object and use my own persistence layer to save the newly created objects. However, I'm still in the design phase here, so I want to be able to view what this would look like if I already had some people created. So I'm going to ignore this action altogether for this video and create some mock data that I can use for the design purposes. Now, there's a couple of ways to approach this, so let me show you two different ways that I use to create and view mock data. If all you want are a few items to display, you can create an array of those objects to use during the design process. So let's start there. First, let's create a new group folder and call it mock data. Inside there, create a new Swift file and call it mock service. Within this file, create a service enum that can contain static properties and functions. So let's call that enum mock service. I'm just going to create a static variable that I'll call sample data, and it's going to be an array of person. And inside there, we'll create some person objects for the array, like this. Now, this is mock data, but the property should reflect the kind of information that you expect to have in your application. The first and last name are pretty straightforward. For my roles, it's going to be something like manager, employee, or contractor. The department will be something like infotech, head office, or retail. And for the countries, I'll be having people from those same countries that I had for my computed flag property: the United States, Canada, France, and the United Kingdom. So duplicate this and create 4 or 5 more entries using whatever roles, departments, or countries you want. Just make sure that you repeat some and use one or more of the countries that you used for your flag property. Now we can return to the person list view model and create an initializer for this class. But for a parameter, add a Boolean property called forPreview and give it a default value of false. Now this means that our current initializer for our state object will still be fine because we don't need to include that argument when we initialize it. It will default forPreview to be false. However, if forPreview is going to be true, we can assign the mock services sample data to our people array. So how do we use this? Well, we want to use this for our preview And for the preview, we want to set for preview to be true for our person list view model state object. And this is going to require that we remove that private designation from our state object. Now then, when the canvas refreshes, the preview will display that sample data. Let's pretty this row up a bit though, and include more information. Let's replace the single text view with a VStack. Within there, create a text view that will display the computed person flag property, followed by a space, and then the person full name. Then set the font to large title. Follow this with another text view using the person department, and set the font to title. And then for the final row, we'll display the person role in a text view, and then just set the font weight to bold. This is looking much better. But let's extract this to its own view. Now, this extracted view will require a person property that gets passed in. So we'll add that now to the extracted view and pass it in. Now, sometimes when I extract a view, I'm able to rename it when I get the extraction, but not this time. It defaulted just to extracted view. So let's rename this to person row view. Now this is great, but I expect a lot more people and I don't want to manually create more entries in my static array. Instead, I'm going to use a service from Mocaroo. It lets me generate JSON of random numbers and objects. I'll leave a link to this site in the description below. Now my needs are pretty modest here. I just need 6 string properties to match my model properties and let it generate the rows for me. For the ID property, I use a UUID string. Now, Mocaroo doesn't have that, but it is a string and I can basically use anything I want. But their GUID type gives me something that looks pretty similar to a UUID. My first name and last name properties are almost like this, but I use camel case instead of the default snake case that Mocaroo likes to use. And I'll just let Mocaroo generate random first and last names for me. Now I can change email to role, gender to country, and IP address to department, but I don't want Mocaroo's generation of data for those other properties. What I want to do is to customize this. So for each of these 3 properties, I'll create a custom set of options from which I want Mocaroo to randomly pick from. Now, you can use whatever you like, but make sure that you use the same countries that you used in your model's computed country flag. Let's limit the number of rows to extract to be 50, and we'll choose the format to be JSON. And now I can tap the download button to download this sample JSON data. What I can do now is to drag this into the mock data folder. So this file is now in the bundle. And that's why I have that bundle extension. It's a generic function that will decode the JSON from a file in the bundle. So back in the mock service, we'll create a new static function that's called seed that has one argument, which is a file, and it's a string representing the name of the file, and this will return an array of person. So how do we get that array? Well, we can use the bundle main decode function that will decode an array of type person.self from whatever that file name is. Now this is going to require that we conform person to the codable protocol. And let's also move that file into our main group here. Back in the person list view model then, we can change our initializer to update our people array by calling the static mock service seed function, passing in that name of our mock data JSON file. Returning now to our list view, we can update the canvas. Now we have 50 rows instead of 4 or 5, and we see immediately some issues with how we are displaying our information. It's not organized, nor is it sorted in any way. What I want to do is to group the data based on user choice by country, role, or department. And for this, we'll create a segmented control picker that I can let the user tap on. In the person list view model then, create a new enum called grouping with an associated type of string. Now, to be used for a segmented control picker, we'll need to make it case iterable, and it has to be identifiable so that we can loop through all the cases. The 3 cases are as described: country, role, and department. And to conform to identifiable, we'll need an ID property, and that can be computed just using the self raw value. We'll need a published property that we'll call grouping, that is of this new type grouping, and we'll give it a default value of country. Back in our person list view, we'll embed the list within a VStack. Above the list, we'll add a picker using grouping as the title, and we'll bind that to our new view model grouping property. And then the content, we'll use a for each loop that will iterate over the person list view model's grouping type, all cases, and that will give us a grouping iterator. Then we can create a text view that displays the grouping's raw value, and we'll make sure that we capitalize it. And then we'll assign a tag that is the grouping itself. Then we'll set the picker style to be a segmented picker and add some padding. Now in our example, we want to group the data by country, role, or department. Now I'll want a section for each of the group's different values, and then have an array of people within each section. For example, if I'm grouping by country, the sections would be United States, Canada, United Kingdom, etc. And then each one of those will have an array of people. So we'll need to be able to divide up the array of people into different sections based on the selected grouping type. Now, a dictionary is ideal for this, as there's a dictionary function that can help us with that. In the view model, we'll create a computed property called grouped people that will return a dictionary where the key is a string and the values will be an array of person. And that string will be one of our group types. So for example, if our grouping type was country, then one of those strings will be Canada. And the array will be all of the people in Canada. So for country, we can return a dictionary where the grouping is done on our people array based on country. And I can then just copy this for the remaining cases and then just change what I want to group on. Now we'll need the section headers, which will be an array of string. This too will depend on the grouping and will return a unique array of those items. So again, we'll use a switch statement on our grouping property, and we can start with country. So we can extract all of the countries in our array using a map function. And then we can remove duplicates by converting that array to a set. We'll turn it back again into an array, and then we'll sort them alphabetically using sorted by, and then just use less than. Well, this will be the same then for the other two cases. We'll just need to change the group type again. Well, now that we have our dictionary with the key being the header and the values, the content for each of those sections based on the grouping, we can create a function that will take in a key value from our dictionary and return the corresponding header string. So again, we'll switch on grouping. In the case of the country, then we can use that static country flag function that we created on our person type to generate the flag and country name by passing in the key value, which is the country string. For the role and department cases, all we need to do is just return the key, which is a string. Well, similarly, we can create a function that will return the correct array, which will be the corresponding value for that key, which is the array of grouped people. Now, this is optional, so we'll need to return an empty array just in case no grouped people exist in our dictionary. Back in list view, then, we'll change our for each loop that was not grouped to create sections with headers and content. For the headers, we'll use a for each loop on our view model section headers using self as ID, giving us the key value. Then we'll create a section with a header and use the view model's section header function, passing in the key, and then we'll set the font to the size of title. Within the section, we'll use another for each loop that will get the content using the view model's section content function, again passing in that key value to generate a single person. This will then present the person row view for that person. Oops, this is misplaced. This should be outside the parentheses. Let's see now. Yes, in the preview I can now see my groups are sectioned, and as a bonus, the sections are collapsible. Now there's one thing that does bug me though. The names aren't sorted. Now I want to sort the array of people alphabetically within each of our sections. So if I return to our view model, let me first assign this array here in our content to a constant that I'll call content. Now we can return that content sorted by the person's last name. But what if we have two people with the same last name and we want additional sort by first name too? Now I have a video on this topic, which is sorting by tuples for an array of objects. I will leave a link in the notes below. We can enclose each side of our comparison in parentheses and create a tuple, with the second item being the person's first name. And we do that for both sides. Returning now to our person list view, we can refresh the preview, and I see that they are now sorted alphabetically by name within each section group. Now some names are a bit too large, so let me reduce the size of that name. Let's check this out on the simulator. If I run the app now, I get an empty array. Well, why? Well, because we didn't initialize our view model for the simulator with the for preview property, assigning it a true value. It's false by default, and I'm able then to now start developing my own persistence model not using any of that mock data. If I do want to check out what it looks like on the device, however, I can temporarily go back to my view and assign for preview to be true to see it in the simulator as well. Well, I hope you found this video useful and have learned some things that you'll be able to add to your projects as well. Please leave a comment for the video and give it a thumbs up if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching.